He noticed her before she noticed him. Not in the cinematic way that people pretend to romanticize, a ray of sunlight catching her cheek, slow motion eyes meeting across a crowded room. No, it was more mundane. She was standing in line at the faculty bookstore, a copy of Anna Karenina clutched under one arm, her other hand fumbling with her phone. She looked irritated, not elegant, her scarf was wrapped carelessly, her boots scuffed, and a paper coffee cup trembled in her grip like her nerves had gone cold. He saw her and thought, not beautiful, but alive. That particular shade of realness that hits you in the ribs like a memory you haven't made yet. She looked like someone who didn't care to hide how hard she was trying, and somehow that made him care. Jude was 23 and newly bold. He had the kind of face that hadn't yet chosen between handsome and forgettable, and he stood behind her pretending not to study the lines near her mouth, the paleness of her knuckles, the silver strands defying her thick black hair. She wasn't old. But she wasn't new either. Her eyes held the weather of years, storms past and ones expected. She was maybe 43 or 44, dressed in an olive green wool coat that hung like it had history. A professor, he guessed. Literature, maybe. Or psychology. Someone used to weighing silence. She dropped the book. It slid off her arm and hit the floor with a soft thud. Jude bent instinctively, grabbing it before she could. Their hands nearly touched. She offered a brisk nod of thanks, almost embarrassed. "You're not gonna say that's ironic, given the ending?" he asked, smiling, handing the Tolstoy back. She blinked once, sharp. Then frowned. "God, no. If I had $1 for every freshman who makes that joke, I'd retire in Milan." "Retire from what?" She smirked and tucked the book back under her arm. "From being polite to strangers who think they're clever." "Ah. Then I guess I'll have to earn a second chance." He didn't expect her to laugh, but she did. Quietly, a genuine slip of sound, like a bird startled out of hiding. It wasn't practiced or charming. It was surprised, like she hadn't heard herself in a while. "Good luck with that," she said as the line moved forward. But the edge had softened. She was gone 5 minutes later. Just a passing figure swallowed by the wide cold streets of the campus, where trees bent under October's early breath. Jude didn't even catch her name, but something had clicked inside him. Something inconvenient, irrational. Something real. The second time they met was not chance. He hung around the humanities building too long to be subtle. He told himself he had work to do there, which was a lie. She passed by, arms again filled with books, and when she noticed him, her eyebrows twitched. "You again." "Me again." She hesitated. "Do you know where the espresso machine is that actually works?" "Yes. But I'm not telling unless you say something that isn't sarcastic. I don't do requests." He walked beside her anyway. They had coffee in the half-abandoned staff lounge, hers black, his with milk. She told him her name was Elise. Just Elise. She didn't volunteer a last name, and he didn't press. She was sharp and defensive and precise with her words. The kind of person who chose sentences like weapons or shields, depending on the day. But that day she was tired, and Jude was relentless with his warmth. "You're not a professor," she finally said. "Graduate assistant. Film studies. Still dangerous." "Why?" She shook her head. "Because you're not dumb, and you ask too many questions." He leaned back, grinning. "I think you like that." "No," she said. "I like silence." "Then why are you still sitting here?" That quiet laugh again. A flicker of something she'd locked away. Her fingers tapped the rim of her cup. Her wedding band was missing. Not a tan line. Not a mark. Just absence. Jude didn't ask. Over the next 2 weeks, they kept meeting accidentally. Library corners. Staff mixers. Empty stairwells. Always a few words traded like currency, a conversation just shy of consequence. She was blunt and sometimes cruel in how she dismissed compliments. He found her fascinating. Then came the afternoon he saw her crying in her car. It was raining lightly, and she was parked just off campus, staring at her steering wheel like it was a confession. She didn't notice him walking by. Her shoulders were shaking, her mascara smeared like charcoal shadows under her eyes. Jude froze, unseen, unsure. But he didn't leave. The next morning, he slipped a note into her mailbox. No name, no assumptions. Just a single sentence: everyone has days like that, even the ones who seem unshakable. He didn't expect an answer. But he saw her that afternoon, and something had changed. She walked up to him during his office hours, no warning. She was wearing no makeup, her coat open, a scarf knotted lazily at her throat. She looked wrecked, and yet less armored. You left the note, she said. Not a question. Yes. That was inappropriate. I know. A pause. Her eyes dropped. But kind. And then, for the first time, her smile arrived without irony or defense. It was quiet. Fragile. Like something blooming after frost. That was the moment he knew they had crossed into a new season. Not friendship. Not flirtation. Something warmer. And infinitely more dangerous. They never agreed to anything. No lines were drawn, no rules spoken aloud. It simply evolved, as most dangerous things do, slowly, like dusk creeping in before you realize the dark has taken over. They would meet after lectures in shadowed corners of the library stacks. She'd pretend to be browsing while he waited on the other side of the aisle, fingers brushing through gaps in the shelves like kids hiding from rules. There was a thrill, but it wasn't teenage rebellion. It was quieter, more intimate than lust. A connection forged from absence and ache. Jude was careful, but not invisible. And Elise was old enough to know better, which made her quieter still. She would remind him, often, in hushed words whispered against his skin, "This is temporary. This can't be known." But it didn't feel temporary when she stayed with him until sunrise, both of them half-dressed on his twin bed, talking about books neither of them liked but read anyway. It didn't feel like an affair when he read her old poems aloud, her voice buried in his breath. She told him about her ex-husband one night in December. They were on the rooftop of an apartment building that wasn't his or hers, a borrowed escape in the city. The wind cut hard, but she stood there wrapped in his coat, smoking a cigarette like a confession. He was a surgeon, she said, watching the embers burn. Very smart. Very admired. Everyone assumed I was lucky. Were you? I don't think luck ever entered into it. He wanted a wife like a trophy, polished, quiet, displayed only at the right times. I stopped being human and started being predictable. Jude didn't speak, just stepped closer. She didn't pull away. I cheated on him once. Years ago. It wasn't about sex. It was about being seen. She didn't cry when she said it. She didn't flinch. She'd long since buried shame. You're not doing that now, he said. You're not using me to be seen. No, she admitted. This time, I think I'm trying to feel something before I forget how. That night, she kissed him like the world was ending and she'd chosen her final memory. And Jude, though young, understood exactly what she meant. But time is not a quiet bystander, and people are not blind. In January, the whispers began. At first, they were just fragments, casual glances when Jude walked into a seminar, laughter that stopped when Elise passed in the halls. A freshman TA with a mouth too big let something slip during a faculty dinner. It's kind of hot, you know? Like, graduate boy meets hot professor. The older professors just blinked. One of them chuckled. The rest went silent. Elise heard about it days later. Jude found her pacing outside his building, a fury he hadn't seen before coiled in her shoulders. Someone saw us at the rooftop building, she snapped. Someone talked. He swallowed. We weren't exactly hiding. We were hiding enough. But now they're guessing, and you don't understand what that means. Then tell me. It means I lose everything. My credibility. My job.
My dignity.
No one cares that you're technically not my student.
You're not married anymore. I'm an adult. And still, they'll call it scandal. They'll call me desperate. Or manipulative. Or both. You think they'll ask you what happened? No. You're the boy with the story. I'm the woman with the stain.
He stepped toward her, but she flinched. Not away, but inward, as though hiding from her own body.
Do you want to stop? He asked, voice steady. She didn't answer right away.
No, she whispered finally.
But we should've.
They retreated, cautiously, over the following weeks.
No more public meetups.
Only brief touches exchanged in passing.
Conversations compressed into text messages that were all implication and coded honesty.
Then the letter came. It was delivered in an unmarked envelope to her office mailbox.
No signature. No return address. Just a typed note. I know about the boy.
You should be more careful. Or you'll be explaining it to the board.
She showed Jude the note that night, hands trembling. This isn't a warning, she said. It's a threat.
He took the paper, read it twice, then crumpled it. I don't care, he said.
Well, I do. Then what do you want to do?
She looked at him, really looked at him, as if measuring the distance between courage and recklessness. And then, for the first time, she said something neither of them had dared speak aloud.
We need to stop. Not because I want to. Because someone else is watching.
He stood in silence, the weight of her words settling between them like ash.
But they both knew it was a lie. Because you can't unfeel something once it's made you feel alive.
Time moved differently after the letter. Their story bent into smaller spaces, less light, fewer words. They spoke in fragments, exchanged glances through glass and across rooms where silence ruled like a warden. But even fear has limits, and so does restraint. Eventually, the need to be together outweighed the need to seem apart. They started talking again late at night, always over the phone. It became a ritual. She would text a single word awake, and he would call within seconds. His voice was steady, low, warm with the weight of someone who chooses you, even when they shouldn't. Her voice was cautious, clipped at first, then slowly uncoiled into softness. In the darkness of their respective rooms, where no eyes could find them, they talked like people who had nothing left to lose. He learned she once wanted to be a poet but gave it up to pay bills and be practical. She learned he used to have a stutter until he was 14 and buried it in acting classes. He learned she hated the sound of the word ma'am. She learned he liked to cook and never followed recipes. They talked about the idea of truth, what it meant to tell the truth when no one believed you, or to lie to everyone except one person. One night, he said quietly, "You don't make me feel young.
You make me feel human."
There's a difference. There was a pause.
She whispered back, "You make me feel like I haven't missed my chance." They met again in person 2 weeks later.
She told herself she was being reckless. He told her they had been careful long enough.
It was a Sunday evening in late February.
Rain tapping windows, streets slick with the sheen of passing headlights. He took her to an art exhibit in a warehouse gallery downtown.
No one knew them there.
No one watched them walk side by side under dripping awnings, hands grazing but not holding. Inside, they wandered among abstract canvases and installations, bent metal and spilled paint that dared to be called art. At one piece, an entire wall covered in burnt photographs, she paused.
"What do you think it means?" he asked. She studied it. Loss. Memory. What we keep and what we destroy to stay sane. He looked at her instead of the wall. "What would you burn?" She didn't hesitate. "My first marriage. My need to explain myself.
The version of me that apologized for breathing." He reached for her hand.
"Don't burn it all.
Some scars are maps." That night, in her apartment for the first time, they didn't speak at all. She let him undress her like he was opening a letter that had been waiting years to be read. And afterward, they lay there, tangled and silent, as the city kept humming outside, oblivious to their defiance. It was the next morning, walking to his car parked half a block away, that Jude felt it, an eye. Not literally, not a face, but the shape of presence.
The sense of someone seeing him.
He turned too quickly, scanned the sidewalk, the windows.
Nothing. Just a woman walking her dog. A bus rumbling past. No camera. No glare. But the feeling stuck.
2 days later, they received confirmation. He came to her office during lunch, carrying a brown bag with 2 sandwiches and a bottle of wine hidden in a water bottle. She looked stressed, her laptop open, a faculty memo blowing on the screen. "Someone saw us," she said, no preamble.
And now someone else knows. Who?
"Apparently a staff member saw us downtown, together. They told their department head."
Words spreading. Jude sat down, unbothered on the outside, boiling on the inside. What do they think they know?
"That's the worst part," she said, pinching the bridge of her nose.
"They don't know enough to accuse, but they know just enough to suspect. Which means we're now characters in someone else's fantasy."
He opened the wine bottle and poured it into 2 mugs.
"We could stop again," he said. She didn't even pretend to consider it.
Instead, she reached into her desk, pulled out a photo. It was old, slightly faded, a much younger Elise, standing on a beach, holding a toddler in one arm. A little boy with black curls and wide, startled eyes.
"My son," she said. "He's 16 now. Lives with his father during the school year. You've never asked."
Jude stared at the photo. It was both expected and surprising.
Like finding a locked drawer you always assumed was empty. "Why are you showing me this now?" "Because this isn't just about us anymore.
If this blows up, if it turns into something bigger, he gets pulled into it."
He nodded slowly. "You think we're selfish?" She looked down. "I think we have been. But I also think we're human. And I don't know how to be one without this."
And there it was again, that strange confession of dependence.
Not desperation. Not romance. But need. Still, neither of them spoke the words people save for the end of the movie. They didn't say "I love you." They said things like "stay," and "call me when you get home," and "do you remember what you said the night we first kissed?" They said things that held love without daring to name it. But even love can't hide forever.
The night they were seen again was just after spring break.
A quiet Tuesday evening.
They had parked 2 blocks from her apartment and were walking home after dinner, not close, not touching.
But close enough. And someone saw them. A colleague. Faculty. Someone with a name. Neither of them knew it yet.
But the witness wouldn't stay silent long.
The fallout didn't begin with a confrontation. It began with politeness, the sharp, formal kind that arrives before something breaks. Elise noticed it first.
The way colleagues started addressing her differently at meetings, no longer seeking her input, no longer catching her eye. The way the dean's assistant, usually chatty, became neutral, careful.
Doors weren't slamming, but they were quietly closing. Then came the message. A formal request from the department chair to meet.
The email was worded with clinical civility, but the subtext was acid. Subject: discussion of professional boundaries. She stared at it for 20 minutes before picking up the phone.
"I think it's time," she told Jude, voice hollow. "Time for what?" "To decide what matters more. Reputation or reality." He didn't speak right away.
He was sitting on the floor of his apartment, textbooks scattered around him, untouched. He thought about what it would mean to step into the light with her, to tell the world he had loved a woman no one thought he was allowed to love. And he realized he already had. That same week, his best friend Luke found out.
It wasn't dramatic. Jude had left his phone on the table.
A message popped up while he was in the kitchen: "I miss you.
I hate pretending." Signed only with a lowercase e. Luke didn't say anything at first.
Just sat there, pale, holding the phone when Jude walked back in. "You serious?" he asked, holding it up.
Jude froze. Put it down. She's old enough to be your mother. Don't. Luke stood up, all disbelief and mockery and something darker. You've been sneaking around with her? With Professor Winslow?
She's not my professor.
And she has a name. She has a kid, dude. You know that, right? And tenure. And a whole life. What the hell are you thinking? I'm thinking she's the only person who actually sees me. And I see her.
Luke's laugh was sharp, cruel.
You think this ends with some romantic gesture? This isn't a movie. This is you being the punchline at every faculty mixer for the next 10 years. Jude didn't say anything. He didn't have to. His silence said it all. Luke walked out.
That weekend, Elise was invited to speak at an academic conference. Nothing major, just a regional symposium on literature and contemporary memory. She had been on the program for months. She almost backed out. But she didn't. You should come, she told Jude. To the conference? To hear what I sound like when I'm pretending I haven't spent the last 6 months living in limbo. So he did. He stood in the back of the room, watching her step up to the podium in a charcoal gray dress, hair pinned back, all elegance and control. But there was a flicker in her voice, a pause at the start. Then she began. Her talk was about unreliable narrators. The stories we tell, the ones we revise, the ones we choose to erase. She spoke with precision, every word weighed like currency. But then, halfway through, her notes fluttered in her hands, and she stopped. A full stop. Silence. She looked out over the audience. Eyes scanning. Then landing. On him. And then she said, I've spent much of my career studying what people hide. Characters who mask their truths to survive. I've become very good at doing the same. But I've come to believe that the real damage isn't in the secret, it's in the silence it demands. A pause. There's someone in this room who has reminded me what it means to be fully known. Not admired. Not obeyed. Seen. I will not pretend anymore. You could feel the shift in the room. Not gasps, not outrage. Just breath being held. The moderator moved to stand, panic behind her smile. Thank you, Professor Winslow, that was. But Elise held up her hand. I'm not ashamed. You can question my judgment, but not my heart. All eyes turned. To Jude. He didn't look away. Not from her. Not from the crowd. When the panel ended, the room emptied slowly. Conversations started in corners. Elise didn't leave right away. She sat on the edge of the stage, still holding her notes. He joined her there, quietly, as if they were alone. That wasn't subtle, he said. I'm done being subtle. He looked at her. So what happens now? She gave him a smile. Not the nervous kind. The kind that said, whatever happens, it will be ours. I guess we find out if truth is enough. But truth is never the whole story. As they left together, the world behind them stirred into motion, emails forwarded, committees called, policies reviewed. Not a scandal yet, but a storm forming at the edge of the map. Outside, the light was fading. Spring breaking through in patches. They walked silently, side by side. And for the first time, no one needed to look over their shoulder. Spring turned the city soft. Trees bloomed like they had nothing to apologize for. Windows opened. Strangers smiled without knowing why. But for Jude and Elise, the season only made their shadows more visible. The conference had made waves. Emails trickled in, some discreet, some not. A senior professor emailed Elise with the subject line "disappointed." A student anonymously posted about predatory dynamics in an online forum. Another, a former mentee of hers, wrote, "I hope you're okay. You deserve your own story, not someone else's shame." The administration remained vague. No formal accusations. But the tone had changed. People moved differently around her now, as if she were wrapped in static. Jude felt it too, students whispering behind him, eyes flicking toward him in lectures, the quiet withdrawal of peers unsure whether to stand with him or step away.
Elise tried to remain composed.
She still taught her classes. Still held office hours.
But she no longer went to department lunches. No more hallway chats or late meetings.
She spoke less in faculty discussions. Her name, once said with respect, now came with weight.
Still, they stayed together. Not defiantly. Quietly. He cooked her dinner.
She helped him edit his thesis. They made space in each other's days like people who knew time wasn't guaranteed. There was no more pretending, but there was still the fear that honesty had arrived too late.
And then the day came.
Her son found out. She had planned to tell him in the summer, gently, on her own terms.
But the internet moves faster than dignity. He'd seen a forum post. Then another.
He put the pieces together before she had a chance. He called her from his father's house.
You could have told me. I was going to. When? When it was safer. Safer for you, or for me? The line went silent. He was 16.
Too old to be calmed with half-truths.
Too young to understand the full weight of love's complications.
Is he just a rebound? Her son asked.
No. Is he just a phase? No. Then what is he? She couldn't answer.
Not because she didn't know, but because there wasn't a word the world had yet made for what Jude had become to her.
She cried after that call. Not loudly. Not broken.
Just quietly, like someone releasing something they never meant to carry. Jude held her for hours.
No answers. No fixes. Just presence.
Then came the invitation.
The university was holding a formal fundraising gala. Attendance was encouraged for faculty.
Elise assumed she would skip it. Jude assumed she wouldn't want to be seen. But she surprised them both.
I'm going, she said one evening while pouring wine. And I want you to come with me. He didn't hesitate.
Okay. No pretending, she added.
No excuses. If we go, we go. As us.
He raised his glass.
Then let's give them something to talk about. They arrived together.
The ballroom was glossy and loud. Velvet dresses.
Black ties. Clinking glasses.
People turned when they entered, as if a rumor had suddenly walked in wearing heels and red lipstick.
Elise didn't shrink. Jude didn't hide.
They walked side by side, her arm gently linked with his, both of them wrapped in a fragile defiance.
Some people greeted her warmly.
Others offered tight smiles. A few avoided her altogether.
Jude felt their eyes but didn't meet them. The university president gave a speech. Elise applauded politely. A donor made an awkward joke. Jude laughed too loudly on purpose. But nothing really happened until the dancing started. A colleague from Elise's department approached.
A man in his 50s, half-drunk, polished in the way men with tenure sometimes are, entitled and tired. So this is the boy, he said, not unkindly, but with the smugness of someone trying to be provocative. This is Jude, she said, her tone razor-sharp.
The man nodded. Well. You're braver than most.
No, Jude replied.
Just more honest.
Later that evening, as the band played something slow and aching, Elise took his hand.
We don't have to dance, he said. I want to.
They stepped onto the floor, bodies close but not clinging.
The room blurred.
Music threaded around them like a vow.
People watched. Some whispered. But most just let them be.
She leaned in close, her voice just above the music.
Do you regret any of it? He looked at her. Only the parts where I let you doubt yourself. A pause. And you? He asked.
I regret waiting so long to stop hiding, she said.
But not the rest.
They swayed in silence, two people suspended in the truth, the chaos, the cost. Two people who had chosen each other in a world that didn't give them easy words or soft landings.
Eventually, the night ended. The lights dimmed. The room emptied. And so did the noise. In the weeks that followed, everything hung in balance. Elise was called into a meeting with HR, just routine, they said. No disciplinary action was taken, but the message was clear: careful now. Jude submitted his thesis. He passed with distinction. He began applying for PhDs in other cities. They talked less about the future and more about the present. They made no promises. They made no apologies. They lived as they could. Then one day, on a bench outside the bookstore where it all started, Elise turned to him. "If you leave, I'll understand. If you ask me to stay, I will. I won't. I know." He took her hand. "So this is the ending?" She smiled. "No. Just a page turn." And then she stood, kissed him gently, and walked away first, leaving him with the question that still floats in the space between knowing and choosing. What do you do with a love that doesn't fit the frame but still fits the heart? The answer, like the future, remains unwritten.